Well, big week ahead of us with conference play starting, going on the road and all that. But recapping Saturday's performance, I think we felt really good about, in particular how that first half looked. An opportunity to get a lot of guys in the game. A valuable experience for a lot of guys that are in backup roles right now that you just don't know how those are going to play out. But I thought we played really physical and that was important in this game, that our physicality, our effort, moved in the right direction, didn't go backwards just based on who we were playing, and really felt good about how that looked in the offense and defensive lines. And offensively, we were able to utilize a lot of different guys, put a bunch of points up on the board, and then defensively, outside of a few plays here and there in the first half, that we played pretty darn well. So pleased about that. As we move into conference play, coming out of the non-conference, 2-1 isn't exactly where we wanted to be, but I think just kind of where we're at and how these three games have prepared us and also just set us up to kind of have a little better sense of where we're at this point. So a couple updates. First off, we did find out that Junior Alexander won't be eligible for us. The waiver that we submitted was denied officially, and it's unfortunate. Juniors, each one of these young men and women that are transferring for a multiple time, there's all kinds of different stories. I know his is one that started at Arizona State, and he spent a semester there, and whether the place was burning or the walls were caving in, that's kind of what occurred, and he chose to leave there, and ultimately going back home to Washington. They ended up having a coaching change in the midst of that change, and so anyways, I think the good thing for Junior is he is in a place where he's thriving. He's thriving on the football field, but he's also thriving in school, and just I think he feels like he's in a really good place as far as having people surrounding him that are looking out for him and caring for him. And this is challenging for a young man who thinks he's got an opportunity to play, and that's getting put back. But at the same time, I think going in, both sides knew that this was a possibility. He still has 2 years of eligibility remaining beyond this year. So we'll put an end to that, I guess, that uncertainty this fall at the very least. Additionally, I didn't list Tommy on the depth of 2 deep. Tommy won't play this week, and that's fair to say that we have a pretty good sense that he'll need at least this week to continue to recover. And additionally, JT Reed and Ty McCullough are still not on that 2 deep, but they're getting closer. They're going to both be out there practicing as we move through this week in smaller forms, I guess, and we're hopeful in the very near future we'll have both of them back. On the defensive side, we do have Paul Brott returning. This will be Paul's first action of the season, so really excited to get him back in that interior D-line. And then Simeon Woodard will be back after missing this past week. We didn't sustain anything, at least at this point, that appears to add to any of those lists from the game on Saturday. So talking about Weber State, also 2-1. Obviously had a tough matchup with Utah, who's an excellent program this past Saturday. It came up on the short side, but won their 2 previous games, including a ranked win over Northern Iowa on the road. Obviously, we've played Weber State 3 times in the last 2 years, and they've all been kind of down to the wire games in different forms. I know the low-scoring game in Ogden 2 years ago was really a defensive struggle, while last year's games were both higher scoring. The first game, of course, had all the special teams plays. In the playoff game, when we opened up a pretty good lead, and they came back to make it very interesting at the end. So 2 teams, I think, that know each other fairly well. The departure of Coach Hill this past off season is certainly a change for their program, but they hired from within, hiring Coach Mental, and the staff by and large is very similar. So they're playing a similar brand of football, which I do think their offense and defense really complemented one another. And then they've been a program within our league that's done more or as much on special teams as anyone. And I might as well start there. Their kickoff return specialist, Abraham Williams, is been nothing short of phenomenal with 5 touchdowns in the past 2 seasons, including one against us. So he's certainly a guy. Now he's playing corner as well more regularly that we'll have to have a game plan for. Looking at them on offense, quarterback wise, Wisner, I think, or Weiser, I should say, has had some real good moments to this point. Throws the ball well down the field, is athletic enough to make plays, but their biggest offensive force this year has been Bankston at running back. He leads our conference in rushing through the non-conference. Is averaging like 7.1 or 7.5 yards per attempt. So he's obviously, he was part of a group of about 3 running backs they played last year, and he's certainly a prime weapon for them on offense, running behind an offensive line that's experienced, that's big, that's strong, and I'm sure that they would say is the where it starts for them on the offensive side. Defensively, the preseason Big Sky MVP in Winston Reed is certainly a force at middle linebacker. He leads the league in tackles right now. Felt like last year he was right there as far as being the best player on the defensive side in our league, and he's picked up right where he left off. They're really attacking with him more, so I think he also leads the league in TFLs at this point as well. He's blitzing probably a little bit more than he did last year, but really has a nose for the football, can see it, can go get it, and is someone that we'll have to have our eyes on where he's at every single play. I know in the secondary, which was really a strength of theirs last year, they had a bunch of turnover, but they do return Maxwell Anderson, who last year led the league in passes defended and continues to do that as we head into this early part of the season at the corner position. And then up front, a little retooled front, but they're led by, get this right, Braden Wilson, number 94, who's second on their team in tackles. That doesn't happen a lot from a defensive line perspective in second in TFL. So, feel like they got really good personnel. They play the game the right way. They're physical. They have big play capability. They try to make a difference in the special teams. So, we'll definitely have our hands full come Saturday night. So with that, I'll open it up.
Anything more you can say about what Tommy's going through or what he's dealing with?
No, I mean it's an injury he sustained against South Dakota State that is not surgical and it's not relative to ligaments, anything like that. So I'll leave it at that. But one that we want to have every precaution as far as putting him back on the football field.
First game you've had without him, I guess, against Weaver. So how does that kind of affect your game plan with Sean now?
Well, I think they're different. I think everybody would agree to that. They bring a lot of the same elements to the table, but their styles are a little bit different. So, our plan will be predicated on what Sean does well, and a lot of our success in those 2 games last year, probably in particular, the first game was Tommy's ability to run. We were in a lot different place, just period, at that point last year at the running back position. Even at the receiver position, you look back, I know Cleveland didn't play in that game. So, we're an offense, I think, that can take on some different forms, and I think we're continuing to figure that out. But, being able to lean on that running back position, continue to develop on the passing side of things, given the guys we have, I think we've got to figure that out, and with the tight ends, find a way to get them involved. And I do think through 3 games, we feel like our offensive line is really playing well. And that's still something that is going to be our foundation. So, it's a game plan predicated around what Sean does the best, and we'll go from there.
I guess speaking of game plan, I think this is your guys' 3rd meeting in like 11 games or something like that. I guess how's that familiarity, and I guess what affect game prep, and I guess just kind of taking a good look at those 2.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely look at those 2 games, and I think you'd even go back to the one in 21, and personnel has changed on both sides to some degree. Styles maybe have changed a little bit. I know Coach Mennel wasn't there in 21 on the offensive side for them. I think you always, in these repeatable games, whether it's conference opponents or like the scenario we had with South Dakota State, you look at what went well in those games and you expect that opposing team to be looking for those same things. You try to play off of things that have gone well. You try to also look at, okay, how have we changed? How have we changed since December of last year in such a manner that really played our strengths as well. So, they're a good football program, though. I think that's the bottom line. It's not a deal where you got to try to make up a level of respect. I mean, there's a lot of respect for what Weber has done and what they're capable of doing. And, I know our guys know full well that this will be a challenge.
And then with Caden now, last game, I was just curious if anything stood out on tape about Lavelle.
I think he continues to play consistently. Missed a couple tackles in that game, and I know that's, we got to get that piece corrected. But I do know he's been flying around. I think he's playing with an amount of confidence that he didn't have maybe coming into this year. I think you get instilled confidence by put in the position that he's been put in, and then you start playing games and realize that you can do it. And I think that's kind of where Lavelle is at right now. We're counting on him. I know with the secondary, we're primarily going with him and Rylan at the strong safety and nickel spots, and then Drew's played well at the free safety spot, and Blake Stillwell, I think, again showed some signs that he can really be a playmaker as well. And I think at the corner position, we've talked a lot about a lot of guys, and Andrew Pauldrill's one that didn't play against South Dakota State, but then really showed up well in this past game. And Andrew, I do think, provides us some flexibility to be in that nickel position at some point in time as well to provide that depth. So I think that's the biggest thing you're concerned about is you go from having a bunch of guys, you lose a guy in Caden that had some flexibility between strong and nickel, and those are big shoes to fill, but we're doing the best we can to fill them.
Brendan Hall, how much of a weapon are you expecting him to be with Williams back there?
Well, I think I'm counting on that to be a big deal now. What you can't account for is any kind of wind. Right now it looks to be a nice day down in Ogden. But Brendan's ability to put the ball deep into the end zone, if not through the end zone, can negate a return game. At the same time, we got to be ready to cover. We've covered one all season, and we didn't cover it real well against Stetson. So, his ability to put it out, but then also just the ball placement, he has to be on point, both kicking and punting. On the punt side, they returned a punt against us last year as well. So, it's a situation where he's going to play a critical role in our success.
And then along the same lines of Casey kicking 2 field goals on Saturday, just how cool was that?
Yeah, it was good. That first game, I kind of had some intention to get him in there on an extra point in the fourth quarter, and we scored quick, and I didn't get him in there. So I said, if we get in position, you'll take all the kicks in the fourth quarter, the place kicks, and just so happened to create 2 field goals for him. And Casey's shown a lot of improvement in his time here. I think we felt really good with him out of the spring. It just became a changing dynamics, bringing Brendan in, and I think Casey proved on Saturday that he'd be more than capable to go in there and place kick for us. So that was good to get him that experience because you never know what's going to happen moving forward.
I know you mentioned Drew earlier, but I guess what have you thought of his transition from corner to free safety?
Yeah, I think we found the appropriate place for him. I know in recruiting him with his length and his speed, I think safety was a strong possibility. We played him at corner the first year more out of necessity. But I do think he's found a home, and his ability to cover kind of sideline to sideline on the back end when he's playing the middle third is one thing. His ability to blitz, I think he's had a couple of impressive blitzes in the last few games. And then he's got the ability with that cornerback background to cover a little bit too. So I think he's continuing to find his footing. By no means has he been perfect, but he's he's played really hard, and I do think he's made a difference here these first 3 games.
Anything else in the room? Coulter, do you have anything?
Yes, sure. I have a couple for you, Coach. First of all, soundness going back when they were both last year. How have you seen him improve and how would you evaluate his wise to get that quarterback?
Yeah, he's probably still finding his way. I think he's a very he's a capable runner. They haven't run him a whole lot. I can't even think of the guy they were playing last year. He was probably more of a runner, whatever his name was. But I think in Weiser, I think they got a little bit more of a deep down the field passing threat. He's been able to throw a couple deep balls this year on target. I know he did come in and play against us last year, and I want to say had some success. I know in separating those 2 games, it's hard sometimes. I think it was the second game, but I think he's still probably trying to find his footing, and they're throwing to a bunch of guys. I know they lost a real good receiver in McPherson last year, a good tight end, but so their targets right now are spread amongst a bunch of guys. I think they got a handful of guys that have 5 and 6 catches, but they got some quality receivers at any rate, and that Utah outfit, that's a tough one to measure. I think anybody's going to struggle against them, and we got to expect his best because I know he's a capable thrower for sure, and he's athletic enough to make plays with his feet.
Going down there, Stewart Stadium, that's been a hard place to win for years for Montana State. You guys won there the last time you were there, so is there something translating on there? Is there anything you carry over? I know it's a couple years ago, but maybe you can't learn from that trip.
Yeah, that's all most of us know is that one trip. In looking back at history doesn't do us much good. I know places that you've been to. I think there's a familiarity at least with what the surroundings are all about. I know they've had some renovations this past year. I know they can get some really good crowds that can be a factor as well. So I think anytime you go on the road, you try to keep things as simple as you can, but having familiarity with your surroundings. I think, at least there's not that curiosity as you go through the week for a lot of your guys of what this place is going to look like, what it's going to feel like, all that. I know we played on a Friday evening back in 21. This will be on a nice Saturday evening. So, expect a great college atmosphere, and we're playing a good team. I think that's probably been the biggest thing over the years is that Weber's had some good teams down there, and they've been the difficult thing to beat more than maybe the stadium.
Defensively, Coach Hill was always so known for his acumen in the secondary, being a secondary guy, and they don't make things get on the back end. Do you still see that? Have they coverage-wise, or is it pretty similar to what we've seen in the past?
It's pretty similar. I know, good or bad, a couple of those guys are with him at BYU that were on last year's team, so that's probably good for us, I suppose. But they've had really skilled. I think that's one thing, and coached up well, willing to play a whole bunch of man-to-man if need be, and really mix it up, with the front 7 to be able to give you a bunch of different looks and create havoc. And I know right now, I'm sure it's to try to get Winston Reed as freed up as they possibly can, because if he's got an opportunity to tackle the football, he's going to. I think similar as far as what they're doing schematically, and even though they lost some real good players in the back end, you can see the replacements have done really well to this point.
When you think back to the matchup that was in Bozeman during the regular season last year, what do you remember about it? That was one of the craziest games I've ever covered in my entire career. What do you remember about that after?
Well, just even watching it, yesterday, you kind of forget a little bit just the flow and how crazy it was. We had some early success, and then it was like a tidal wave, and we were down a bunch of points in a hurry. That was primarily because of the 2 return touchdowns. But we had done some things offensively to that point, and didn't have a ton of points to look on the board to account for that. But I know the safeties certainly brought us, things that we didn't, brought us points and field position that we didn't expect necessarily, and we capitalized on those. Then we found ourselves up at halftime with a kind of a crazy finish to the first half, and then just, I think what I do remember more than anything is just hanging on for dear life at the end. I forgot that they'd cut it to 5 even. You kind of get those 2 games. We were able to finish the game on offense in the playoff game, but we weren't on defense or on offense. We went for it on a 4th and 1, and we didn't get it. That would have extended the lead, made it a little harder on them. The lead stayed 11, and they get the touchdown. Yeah, so crazy game. We made a bunch of plays. They did as well. And I think it showed our resolve that day, and then to come back in the playoff game and beat them. And we got up in that game, I think, 33-10, and they kept fighting back. I think that's probably the thing you take away is this team is going to keep after you. And I'd like to think that's how people see us as well. So I think it's a really good matchup in those terms. Two teams that have won a lot of football games over in recent history, and we got to play real well to get a W this coming Saturday.
I know we talked a lot in the offseason about Connor Moore and his emergence, but how do you think he's got here now that he's got a couple of games under his belt?
Yeah, I think Connor's played pretty well. That we've primarily gone with 5 guys to this point. Connor was a key component to, I guess, some of the moves we made, and he's played well. He doesn't look like a freshman out there. I think it helped that he did get some playing time under his belt as a true freshman last year. But he's incredibly athletic for his size. He's very intelligent, and it means a lot to him. I think he loves the game of football. I feel really good about how he's plugged in, and then moving Rush to guard, I think has been a good move for our team and for Rush. So those 2 playing on that left side, we feel really good about that. And then Omar and Marcus on the other side have played really well too.
Is anything different about the mentality it takes to get into conference play? I mean, where do you think of the starting conference play then?
They're all still one at a time. They all count as one. But ultimately, what's proven the last couple of years is, to win our conference, you can't lose a game. And whether that's going to repeat itself this year, I don't know. But, that's what starts for us here on Saturday. And there's a lot of teams, I believe, that are capable of, doing big things this year. A lot of universities that are invested right now in football, and that's a good thing for our league. A lot of teams right now that are in the top 25, a lot of teams that are worthy of that, did pretty well in the non-conference. So, I think your intensity, while always needing to be at a fever pitch, really needs to be at these games. And going on the road, for the first game. I know last year we had a struggle win that first non-conference game in Eastern Washington, but we found a way, and that's really what it's got to be about, finding a way. And that's the team that can do that more times than anyone else is going to find itself at the top, and that's what we aim to do.
And last one for me, I wanted to ask about your ball. It seemed like you really did transition pretty seamlessly to free safety. Also, one note, he told me he's still game advantage since that's 5th grade, so that's pretty cool. But I'm wondering about just what he's about with that in your defense.
I think he's allowed us to do a few more things with that position, and that's we have within our defense, the flexibility to do different things coverage-wise and blitzing-wise based on the abilities really of our nickel, our free, and our strong. And while the last couple of years with the combination we had with Jeff Manning playing free for the most part, Ty Akata playing nickel, and we had a couple different strong safeties through that, it might have looked a little different. I know with Drew at free, I think we can do more with that position, and that's a credit to his ability more than it is anything about Jeff. We tried to play to Jeff's strength the best we could, and we're trying to do the same with Drew. And it just so happens that, I suppose maybe his skills are more wide-ranging, and that'll continue to have to prove out over time. I mean, he's played 3 games and he's done some I think, impactful things in these 3 games. But, ask me what I think maybe, a couple months down the road. But I do think we're on the right track with Drew and his ability to really be really impact games at that spot. And we got to continue to find ways to put him in position to do so.